I never saw it coming. The life I thought I was living, the future I had worked so hard to build was all based on a lie. It started with a simple phrase I had heard 1,000 times before. "I'm working late tonight." Kevin's voice, usually so comforting, became my worst nightmare in an instant. But what I didn't know was that while I was at home, doing everything I could to support him, he was out there with someone else, pretending to be something he wasn't. I had given him everything, every part of me, all my trust, all my sacrifices, and all my love. And he had the audacity to betray me with someone else. I thought we were happy. I thought we had something real. I had watched him graduate, cheering him on at every step of his medical journey. I had given up everything for him, working long hours at the office to pay for his tuition, covering all our expenses while he focused on his studies. I didn't mind. It was worth it because he promised me forever. But everything changed the moment I found out that forever meant nothing to him. It started innocently enough, or at least it seemed that way. One day, he texted me, "Working late again, babe. Don't wait up." Nothing unusual, but something in me felt uneasy. He'd been working late a lot more lately, and every time I asked, he just brushed it off with the same excuse. Busy with exams? Or there's a big project? I didn't question it at first. I trusted him. I believed in us. But then the feeling grew, and I found myself staring at my phone, questioning his every word, every excuse. And when he texted me that he would be home late again, a small voice inside me whispered, "Something's not right." So I decided to do something about it. I wasn't going to just sit there, waiting for him to come home with a half-baked excuse. I was done being the fool. I had been living in the shadows of his lies for too long. The truth had been slipping through the cracks, and now I was going to find it. I followed him. It wasn't something I had planned, but something deep inside told me that if I didn't do it, I'd never have the peace of mind I needed. I followed him to a part of town I didn't recognize, far away from the places he normally went. As I parked my car down the street, my heart raced. My mind was spinning with all the possible reasons he could be in that neighborhood, all the justifications I had made for him in my mind. But nothing could prepare me for what I was about to see. I watched him from a distance, walking confidently toward a hotel lobby with a woman at his side. The way they laughed together, the way he touched her arm, it was the last straw. My hands trembled as I clutched the steering wheel, trying to hold back the overwhelming flood of emotions crashing down on me. This wasn't just a late night at the office. This wasn't just a business meeting. No, this was a betrayal. A deep, gut-wrenching betrayal. My fiancé, the man I had trusted with my heart, had been lying to me, and I had been too blind to see it. But I didn't confront him then. That would have been too easy. I had a plan, a much better one. I wasn't going to just catch him in the act and let him get away with it. I was going to make him regret this. Every lie, every moment of deceit. I wasn't going to let him destroy me without facing the consequences of his actions. The drive home felt like the longest one of my life. My mind raced as I processed what I had just seen. He had betrayed me with someone else, someone I didn't even know. The woman at the hotel had a look in her eyes, something I hadn't seen in his eyes for a long time. It was all too much. I had to do something. I couldn't just let him carry on pretending like nothing happened. He needed to pay for what he had done. I would make sure of it. When I walked into our house that night, I could still feel the anger burning in my chest. Kevin was already home, looking the same as he always did, calm, collected, pretending everything was normal. He had no idea what I had just uncovered. He had no idea that everything was about to change. He would never look at me the same way again, and neither would I look at him. I had been living in the dark, and now the truth was out. But the question was, what would I do next? In the quiet of the house, I could feel the weight of what had just happened. Kevin was downstairs, making dinner, acting as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. My heart was heavy with the realization that everything I had done, all the sacrifices, were nothing more than a cover-up for his betrayal. As I sat down at the kitchen table, I could feel the anger swelling inside me. How could he do this to me? How could he lie to my face, pretend to be the man I loved, all while sneaking around with someone else. It was too much. I needed to be calm. I needed to think. But inside, the rage was building, and I couldn't stop it. I had given him everything. I had trusted him with my whole life, and he had shattered that trust in a single moment. The pain of betrayal was suffocating, but I wasn't going to let it defeat me. No, I was going to make him feel every ounce of that betrayal. He would pay. But how? What could I possibly do to make him realize the depth of what he had done? How could I expose him, make him face the truth, and make sure he never took me for granted again? The answer was simple. I would do exactly what he feared the most. I would take control. I would expose him. And I would destroy the perfect little world he had built, one lie at a time. The night stretched on, but my plan was already in motion. The calm facade I had been wearing was about to crack. Kevin thought he had me fooled, but I was done being the victim. This was no longer about me trying to fix things. This was about me reclaiming my power. And by the end of this, he would know just how dangerous it was to lie to me. If you want to see how this story unfolds and the shocking revenge that comes next, hit that subscribe button now. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this all plays out. I could hear Kevin moving around downstairs, but I didn't feel like myself anymore. Everything felt so surreal. I was no longer the trusting woman who believed in her fiancé and our future. I was now a woman on a mission, a woman whose heart had been shattered into pieces, and those pieces were sharp, angry, and ready for payback. The emotions that had been simmering inside me all evening, all day, exploded with the force of a tidal wave. Anger, betrayal, and strangely, a sense of empowerment filled me all at once. I wasn't going to sit around anymore. I wasn't going to let Kevin play me for a fool any longer. He had shown me who he really was, and now I was going to make him face the reality of his lies. I had already made my mind up. I wasn't going to confront him just yet, not until I had everything I needed. I was going to do this the right way. I was going to expose him in a way that would leave him speechless. But how could I pull this off without him suspecting a thing? How could I ensure that everything I did would land the biggest blow possible, destroying his world the way he had destroyed mine? I needed to think strategically, just as I had done when I supported his medical school tuition with every cent of my savings. I had always been the one holding everything together, managing the finances, organizing our lives. And now it was time for me to do the same with the revenge I was about to execute. The next day, I took a deep breath, pretending like everything was normal. Kevin had no idea that I knew about his betrayal. He still believed I was in the dark, that his lies hadn't caught up with him yet. But little did he know, I was planning his downfall step by step. I wasn't just going to catch him in a lie. I was going to make him regret ever thinking he could get away with this. I spent the day gathering all the evidence I needed. I took screenshots of the hotel receipts. I made sure to back up all the messages from Sarah that I had discovered on his email. I even went through his social media, finding little clues that connected the dots. It was like playing detective, except this wasn't a case of stolen property. This was my life, my trust, my future that had been ripped away from me, and I was about to make sure Kevin understood just how much that hurt. The tension between us was palpable that night. Kevin was so oblivious, so clueless about what I had uncovered. He sat on the couch, his eyes glued to his phone as I moved around the kitchen, preparing dinner like everything was fine. But everything was far from fine. Every moment we shared now felt like a lie, a cruel performance where I was the star, pretending to be the woman he thought I was. Little did he know, I was preparing to give him the performance of a lifetime. It was time for me to set the stage for his downfall. "Are we still on for the weekend?" Kevin asked casually, as if nothing had changed. His tone was light, but I could hear the nervous undertone in his voice. He probably thought I was none the wiser. But I wasn't just going to let this slide. He had humiliated me. And now, he would feel every ounce of that humiliation. "I'm not sure," I replied, keeping my voice steady, calm. "I've been thinking, and I have a few things I need to sort out. I need to focus on other things." He didn't look up from his phone, dismissing my comment as nothing more than a passing thought. But the wheels in my mind were already turning. This wasn't just about a confrontation anymore. No, it was about taking control. I had lived in Kevin's shadow for far too long, and now I was going to show him who I really was. I wasn't the broke, overworked administrator anymore. I wasn't the woman struggling to pay bills while supporting him. I was Claire Martin, the woman who had always been playing the game better than he could ever imagine. And he was about to see just how good I was at this game. The evening passed in a blur, and soon I found myself alone in the living room with a glass of wine in my hand, my thoughts swirling. It was time to put my plan into action. But I wasn't going to rush into it. I had already learned from the best, patience was key. And when I finally made my move, it would be devastating. He wouldn't know what hit him. I waited until he fell asleep, his breathing steady beside me, before I quietly slipped out of bed. I had one final task to complete before the storm would hit. I grabbed my phone and made a few discreet calls, ensuring that everything would be set for the weekend. Kevin thought he had control, but he had no idea that I was in control now. The call ended with the last piece of the puzzle falling into place. I was ready. My revenge was calculated, my actions precise. I wasn't going to let Kevin walk away unscathed, but as I stood there in the silence of the night, looking down at him sleeping, I realized one thing. This wasn't just about revenge. This wasn't just about exposing his lies. This was about me reclaiming my life. It was about showing Kevin that no one could destroy me. He thought he could break me, but he didn't know that I was stronger than he ever imagined. And soon he would find out exactly how much strength I had. If you think this story can't get any crazier, trust me, you're wrong. Hit the subscribe button now to see the shocking fallout from Claire's revenge and what happens when Kevin faces the consequences of his betrayal. The weekend had arrived, and everything was falling into place. The calm I had worked so hard to maintain was about to shatter into 1,000 pieces. Kevin had no idea what was coming. I could feel the anticipation building inside me, like a storm on the horizon, waiting to unleash its fury. It was Saturday afternoon when I received the confirmation. Everything was set. I had everything in place, and now all I needed to do was execute the final step. I looked at the clock. It was almost time. The look on Kevin's face when he realized what I was about to do. It was going to be priceless. Kevin had been excited all week about the so-called weekend getaway he'd planned. He told me we'd be going to some secluded cabin in the woods, a romantic retreat to get away from the chaos of life. I played along, nodding with a smile, pretending I was just as eager as he was. But in my mind, I was already several steps ahead of him. He thought he was taking me to a quiet cabin, but he had no idea that I had orchestrated something much bigger. I put on the dress I had saved for this moment, the one that made me feel both powerful and untouchable, the one I knew would make Kevin's jaw drop when he saw me. It was time to show him who was really in control. As I stood in front of the mirror, I could barely recognize the woman looking back at me. She was different now, stronger, wiser, and fully aware of her worth. Kevin had thought I was weak, that I was just some woman willing to sacrifice everything for him. He was about to see just how wrong he was. "Are you ready?" Kevin's voice broke me out of my thoughts. I turned to find him standing in the doorway, smiling that familiar smile I used to adore. But now all I could see was the man who had betrayed me, the man who had shattered my trust with one thoughtless decision after another. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady, my eyes cold. I couldn't let him see the storm brewing inside me. I had to remain calm, composed, until the time was right. We drove in silence. The car's engine hummed along as we made our way out of the city, and I could feel my pulse quicken with every mile we drove. Each passing second brought me closer to the moment I had been waiting for. I had waited 3 long years for this. 3 years of lies, deception, and betrayal. And now I was about to take my power back. As we neared the hotel, I felt my stomach twist. This was it. The place where everything would be exposed, where Kevin's world would come crashing down. The place where his lies would no longer be hidden, and where the truth would finally come to light. Kevin parked the car in front of the hotel, looking around with a sense of excitement. I could see it in his eyes. He thought he had successfully planned the perfect escape, a place to make up for all the mistakes he had made. But he was wrong. This wasn't an escape. This was the beginning of his downfall. I had already made the call. The room had been booked, the key had been collected, and the trap was set. Everything was ready. All that was left to do was watch Kevin walk into it. He got out of the car, walking confidently toward the hotel lobby, unaware that he was walking straight into the web I had woven. I followed him, my steps deliberate, controlled, every move calculated to send a message that he couldn't ignore. When we reached the elevator, I could feel the tension rising between us. Kevin had no idea that this was the last time he'd ever feel in control of anything in our relationship. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I asked, my voice quiet, but sharp enough to cut through the air between us. I was testing him, seeing if he would give any sign of guilt, any hint of his true feelings. But he just smiled, oblivious. "Of course," he said, his grin wide. "This is going to be amazing." As the elevator doors closed, I felt my heart race. The time was almost here. The elevator dinged, and we walked down the hallway toward the room I had reserved. Kevin seemed oblivious to the weight of the moment. He was still lost in his fantasy, thinking he had everything under control, thinking he could keep up the charade for just a little longer. But this was no longer his game to play. This was mine. When we entered the room, I told Kevin to make himself comfortable while I freshened up. I wasn't going to let him see the plans I had made, not just yet. I needed him to stay distracted while I prepared for the confrontation that was about to unfold. I walked into the bathroom, closing the door behind me. I stood in front of the mirror, taking a deep breath. The woman I had become was staring back at me, and I knew it was time to show Kevin exactly who I was. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming my life, about taking back the power that had been stolen from me for so long. I walked back into the room, and there he was, still lounging on the bed, a smug smile on his face as he fiddled with his phone. I could feel the anger rise inside me, but I kept it in check. The time had come to execute my plan. He was about to get the surprise of a lifetime. "You know," I said, my voice low but steady, "you really think you can get away with everything, don't you? You really thought you could keep up the charade and I wouldn't find out?" Kevin froze, his smile faltering as his eyes met mine. The air shifted, the tension between us thickening. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice suddenly defensive. "Don't play dumb," I said, stepping closer to him. "I know everything, Kevin. I know about Sarah, the hotel, the lies, the deceit. I know you thought you could keep me in the dark forever, but not anymore." His face went pale, and I could see the panic creeping into his eyes. He stood up, fumbling for words, but none came. He was caught, and there was no escaping this. I pulled out my phone and showed him the pictures I had found. Pictures of him and Sarah, laughing, touching, as if nothing in the world mattered. He couldn't hide from it anymore. The truth was right in front of him. "You're nothing but a liar," I said, my voice cold, "and you will pay for what you've done. I'm not the woman you thought I was. And this is the beginning of your regret." The confrontation has just begun, and Kevin has no idea what's coming next. If you think this story is crazy, just wait until you see how it all unfolds. Hit that subscribe button now to stay tuned for the shocking twists that are about to change everything. You've seen the first steps of Claire's shocking revenge, but this is just the beginning. What happens next will leave you speechless. If you want to see how this story unfolds and how Claire takes control, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss the jaw-dropping twists coming next. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a shocking moment.